Nick, all right, man. Join us from a special location today.
I am live on location at CypherCon in beautiful and surprisingly sunny and somewhat warm today, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
There you go. All right.
This is this is my second year at CypherCon. Maybe second year. Second year at CypherCon. Man, Matt, I'll tell you what, this place is it's different than most of the other conferences you'll go to or spend time in. Very, very cool. I'm gonna plug the crap out of this conference. So
Okay. All right. There you go.
dog. Yeah. No, not just because I know the guy who runs them. So shout out to Michael Getzman, but no, this is it's a super fun conference. There's probably, I would say, somewhere around 2,500 people here.
Mhm.
It's at the Baird Center in downtown Milwaukee, a couple blocks away from the Fiserv Arena where the Milwaukee Bucks play.
Yeah.
It is entirely too big to be a local security conference.
Hmm.
They've got 5 or 6 different tracks going on at all different times, with different talks going on at different times. They've got 2 floors of the building here. I've been to Security Congress a couple times. I spoke at the ISC squared, or the ISACA GRC conference. This is as big as either one of those. And, it's a regional security conference here in Wisconsin. So yeah, they plugged a CypherCon.
Amazing. So what are the what are the tracks that you're going to be going to the next couple of days?
So CypherCon is it's very technical. So it's different than a lot of the types of things that I typically kind of gravitate towards, because I'm not the most technical person, as you know. But this is very technical. So it's a split between talks and a lot of hands-on activities.
Okay.
So they've got probably, and I don't think I'm exaggerating here when I say 24 different villages, or like wards is what they're calling them this year. So they've got an entire area that's dedicated to lock picking, like actual physical lock picking, and safe cracking. So you put on a pair of headphones and you hook up like a reader on the computer, and you're sitting there turning the dial trying to crack the safe. They have IoT cracking. They have a couple different AI villages. They've got a Bitcoin village. Pretty much anything that you can think of, they've got. Last year, coolest thing that I saw, I think the company was Ghost Scale. I hope I'm saying their name right, but the guy who ran Ghost Scale, his business cards were motherboards. And if you got his business card and went to his village, he had equipment and like soldering irons and stuff there at his village, and you could build a Wi-Fi scanner using his business card.
Wow.
So that's the type of, it's phenomenal. And check out the badge for this place. So, it's got, 3 batteries in the back. There's a micro USB plug here on the side. It's got an NFC reader here at the bottom. So you take your phone and you scan it. And basically, they had something similar last year. The idea is that this is how you go and you talk to people while you're here, because everybody, like, I've got a digital badge, but then they've got like an analog badge, which is just, plastic. But you have to take your phone and go up to somebody and you have to, ask them and scan their badge. And then you get points, and it's almost like capture the flag, only the flag is like humans are the flags. And they do that to encourage people to go out and speak and socialize and, and get to know one another while they're here. I mean, I've been to dozens of conferences over the years. I was fortunate enough to just stumble upon this here a few years ago. You know what, actually, I'm sorry for dominating this conversation so far, but
Oh, you can.
this is this is a really good story. Um, so a couple years ago, I spoke at Security BSides St. Louis. It was my very first speaking engagement, like public speaking outside of stuff that I was doing in work. Super nervous. You know, it, it was, well, it's what got me started in public speaking. I was talking about security project management. So, always a rousing topic that everybody wants to come hear about. And one of the speakers was Michael Getzler. So he drove from Milwaukee down to St. Louis for the weekend and spoke at the conference. And I actually just met him because I held the door open for him on the way in, and started chit-chatting with him. And he told me, hey, I run this conference in Milwaukee called CypherCon. You should check it out. Come to it next year. Because I'm pretty centrally located between Milwaukee and St. Louis. So I checked it out. It looked cool. And, Michael sat in on my talk and gave me some feedback afterwards. I thought, if this guy's running this conference in Milwaukee, he's seen me talk. He said I did a good job. I should apply to speak at his conference. And so I did, and discovered this gem up here in Milwaukee that I'd never heard of before. And this is the 8th annual version. So, it probably would have been a while before I heard about it.
Right.
And I came and I spoke here last year. Phenomenal experience. And then I came up here this week and I spoke at Security BSides Milwaukee yesterday, and I'm just attending CypherCon this year. So it's a much different experience attending a conference versus attending and speaking. Have you done a lot of speaking engagements at conferences, Mount?
Some. It's been a while, but yeah, some. I understand what you're saying. It is different than kind of a passive participant in the crowd. But it very much both are great. They're just very different.
Yeah, I noticed it yesterday when I was here, or when I was at the other event. In the early morning, I was pretty comfortable. As the clock started to tick and we were getting a little bit closer to my talk, and I was closing the show yesterday. So I was the last presentation, and when we got about 2 hours out, I was having a hard time participating and paying attention to other people. I started to get a little bit more focused on myself, which you hate that, because you want to be there to support all the other speakers. But I also had an obligation to really be dialed in for the audience when I spoke. And in retrospect, I noticed that last year at CypherCon, and it was even worse because I had a very busy day and I didn't speak until 8:00 at night.
Oh yeah.
So this is not only is this a big event, it's very social. There was a dinner and a party last night. There's an after party tonight. The event today runs from noon until noon to 9, and then there's an after party at 10 to 2, and then it starts again tomorrow at 10 a.m. And so, last year with me not speaking until 8:00 at night, it was I had to do a lot to pace myself and make sure that I still had that energy at 8. Particularly, my topic last year was IT governance. And I knew that I was going to have to bring the energy, because I didn't think that there was going to be a lot of energy in the room talking about IT governance. It's not the sexiest topic that's on the agenda. Very different experience this year. I wouldn't have been able to do this recording with you last year. I would not have been in the headspace.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, it sounds like a great opportunity to go there. And just in terms of it's multidimensional, right? The people that you're meeting, the things that you're listening to, what you're learning about, you're probably getting challenged in some areas because it's more of a technical kind of a conference versus something where it was just more listening to lecturing, right? So you're probably getting your challenge for the week, right? Sounds like.
Yes, very much so. I'm sure this will surprise no one, but I'm attending a couple talks on AI security, which is a hot button topic in pretty much every space right now, it feels like. But they have a lot of other topics that are, not your cookie cutter type of things. People are going very in depth on penetration testing and IoT security. I believe there's even somebody here that's talking about building like trying to think of the word for you here. Not like a satellite, but something similar, like basically launching stuff into orbit and talking to it. And what's the MVP for that, and what's the cheapest way you can launch something into orbit? Which is a topic that I clearly know nothing about. But by the end of the day, I probably will.
So Nick, do they do a pretty good job of, before the conference, giving you time to be able to look at what's the presenters and the topics and give you a pretty good idea of how to plan before you actually get there?
They do. So CypherCon is probably one of the better organized events in that regard. Their website, they've had the speaker lineup advertised for weeks. They have the program all spelled out. And in fact, so when you register, they give you a paper program. And the paper program has a schedule of all the talks over the couple days, and even has a map of the facility, so you can figure out where everything is. And yeah, they code it like they've got a path. Their shapes, so circle, square, triangle, star, and like this is a hexagon. And then they've got that all on the map. I mean, these are little things that a lot of conferences don't necessarily do well. They don't have programs like this. It's not in full color. They don't map out how to get to what. CypherCon does a good job. Michael's been doing this for 8 years. He's got things pretty well figured out. So yeah, I love what they do here, and I'll be back every year.
Is it all in one building, or is it different blocks?
It's all in one building. So it's at the Baird Center in downtown Milwaukee. It's their big conference and event center. So if like they were going to host a Comic-Con, they would host it here. And so they've got, I would say probably about 12 different rooms, including one of the grand ballrooms that they've booked out. And they do this really smart. So, the CypherCon conference is on Thursday and Friday. BSides Milwaukee is on Wednesday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So starting tomorrow night when CypherCon ends is the Midwest Gaming Classic, which is also here at the Baird Center. And they have that all weekend. And it's retro video games and like arcade games and things like that. There'll be people dragging in hundreds or thousands of games here. There'll be like old school LAN parties that people are setting up to do video gaming. And so but obviously there's a lot of overlap between the cybersecurity community and the gaming community. A lot of the same flavors of nerds, which like I'm raising my hand. I'm one of these nerds. And so you can come to Milwaukee for the entire week and check off all your boxes for your security conference, maybe even have your company pay for the security conference, and then do the Midwest Gaming Classic over the weekend. So really, like I said, well organized, very smart the way they do this. It's a blueprint for other people that are trying to put on a conference. The folks at CypherCon have figured out.
Yeah, especially I think like a regional conference. This is pretty good based on what you're describing. I mean, most of my experience with conferences are like the massive ones in San Francisco or places where they're not convenient. They're like thousands of people, and you're having, it's just a big thing. It's just it's not intimate enough. You're spending more time trying to figure out where you're going in the whole process.
Yes.
That listening to
Very much so. Yeah, I've done like this stuff in Vegas, several times. I was at a conference at Caesars a couple years ago, and I'm sure you've been to Caesars before for a conference or an event or something, and it's just massive. You think about trying to walk around like complex. Obviously it's a bit of a maze for a reason, it's very intentional.
yeah.
And it's a very different feeling here. I really appreciate it, and like I said, I can't applaud them enough. The conference yesterday was pretty neat too. So it was the BSides events. I don't know. Have you ever been to a security BSides event before? So I'm probably not going to give the history on this correct, but I'm gonna give it a shot anyway. So BSides is a community-driven security conference that's hosted in different cities and locations all over the world. I believe I looked this up a couple years ago, and there were like 200 and some different BSides events in 60 different countries that are hosted every year. There's a security BSides event in Peoria, Illinois, 45 minutes from where I live, that probably has a couple hundred people that go to it. Then there's other BSides events like, so BSides Las Vegas is, I believe, a couple days before DEF CON in Vegas, and there'll be thousands of people there. But it's either typically free or very low cost. Anybody can put on a BSides event. So one of the women that helps organize CypherCon puts on BSides, and this was the second BSides Milwaukee. I would say there was probably somewhere between 300 and 400 people there. It was at the Irish Heritage and Cultural Center in downtown Milwaukee, which is it's an old renovated Catholic church. And I should not have been surprised to find out that the Irish Heritage Center has 2 bars on site inside the old church. So they made sure that they stayed on brand. But it was a great event, but like I said, very significantly smaller and more intimate. However, there was only one room, and so I was up on stage, which is, where, they would be holding mass several years back when it was a functioning church. And my audience was, on the pulpits out, in the room. And so I got to start things off with, a couple amens, that was a nice change for me. And then, I had a couple hundred people, a captive audience to hear my talk. So super cool experience.
So are there vendors that make this kind of financial contribution to support the gathering?
There are.
Is that what happened?
Yes, there are. So, a lot of the usual suspects are here today, and yesterday. So Sentinel One is here. Guide Point Security's here. I'm looking here right now. SysDig, Sublime Security, Clarity, Wiz, I believe, is sponsoring things today. See, Threat Locker. Well, these are just the ones that I can see from my seat. So, yeah, there's probably a couple different dozen vendors that are here. And there were several vendors yesterday, some local, some national. So yeah, they're, it's like your typical conference from that standpoint. But everybody's also they're on their best behavior.
Yeah, I just wondered how the BSides work. If you're not really paying, the attendees really aren't paying or paying much to go, like you're picking up costs. That's what I was thinking. Maybe with vendors.
Oh, yeah, vendors and sponsorships. I have a feeling CypherCon may subsidize BSides a little bit for this specific event. I could be wrong, but I think that they charge maybe like $20 or $30 for a ticket to BSides this year. But I mean, it was inexpensive. And if you're a student, you probably got like a free pass or something like that. That's typically how they do those things. So yeah, it's very, very accessible. It was nice because there were a lot of younger folks that were in attendance yesterday because of the accessibility, whereas something like CypherCon, it's still, I would say very accessible, but it's going to be, $300 or $400 still. It's end of CypherCon.
Gotcha. So you're there through tomorrow then? The session's tomorrow?
Yeah. Yes, I'll be here through tomorrow. I am done talking, which is nice. I spoke yesterday and I've got that all out of the way, and now I can just kind of enjoy the conference and socialize and meet people and, attend some of these different sessions and, hopefully do. I want to try this safe cracking. I've always thought that was cool. And so I want to try and get hands on with while I do my best Ocean's 11 impression today.
Yeah. That'll be fun, and you'll have to let me know how that whole process goes. That seems like pretty interesting.
Yeah, very. So yesterday, my talk, you and I had talked about this a couple weeks ago. So it was 10 things I wish I knew before I started my own business.
Yeah.
And it was the only non-security talk of the day. Everyone else was very on point or on brand in the cybersecurity space. Mine was, the only business related one, although obviously a lot of carryover since I own a security company.
Right.
I would say it was one of the best attended and best received talks I've ever done.
Oh, good.
Which I wasn't. Thank you. I wasn't necessarily expecting that, and it was really kind of an eye opener for me because it reminded me that people don't talk about the business aspect of things as much as they should. Or if they do, they talk about the sales aspect or the marketing aspect, but like end to end starting a business and the different trials and tribulations. A lot of people, particularly the failures and the hard times, like people have a tendency not to want to talk about the things they didn't do well, or at least not to the degree that they like to talk about their wins.
Right.
And I really tried to turn that on its head and talk about all the things that I didn't do well, all the things that I didn't know about, all of the hard lessons that I had to learn, and the failures that I've experienced. And like I said, people resonated with that better than, any of the time you're standing up on a soapbox doing a little grandstanding about how well everything's going. You might get some applause for that, but it doesn't resonate with people nearly as well as when you get vulnerable and you tell them about when you failed.
Feeling stuck in your career? Like you're not reaching your full potential? At Greenbox U, we help you unlock the hidden potential within your career journey. Our Digital Foundations for Success course, combined with personalized coaching, equips you with the tools and strategies to discover, monetize, and apply your unique skills, knowledge, and experiences. Don't just meet expectations, exceed them.